that the current position of the Catholic Church on the UFO issue is to accept the possibility that in such a large universe we're not alone, and that the angels of the past could be the aliens of today.
Hello, how are you? Welcome to this editorial, and this is one we are joined by Sixto Confesses, a writer and speaker, worldwide known for handling the subject of the UFO phenomenon. We have already had him there on the Cosmovision channel and other occasions, and we want to thank him for joining us again after so many years, Sixto. Welcome back to the Cosmovision channel.
A pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk about this controversial topic, that of the UFOs.
Okay. Well, there are many news that you are going to tell us today in this interview about what has been known lately about the UFO phenomenon. But if I wanted to remind our viewers a little bit about the people who see us at this time, where where was it born your interest in this UFO phenomenon? Did you tell me before starting this interview that the culprit was Carlos Paz?
Yes, Jose Carlos Paz Garcia Corrochano, my father, was a scientific advisor on aeronautics and the Peruvian Air Force. In Germany, he was a personal friend of Hermann Hober, the professor of Bernard von Braun, the creator of the Saturn V that led to the man to the moon. My father, apart from investigating all that was the astronomical and scientific part, he also, in his spare time, investigated the UFOs. He, with friends of his group from the Peruvian Air Force, had an UFO research institute. This was in the early 50s, I imagine, so I was born and raised in that environment, favorable to the subject since we were little. My father taught us to think, not to believe, that in such a large universe it is not strange that there can be life outside the Earth. It would be strange if there was not. Then a series of circumstances arose at the age of 17 that motivated me to really try the contact experience. It turns out that at 17, he ended up doing a hatha yoga and mantra yoga meditation with a group of people. I was in a stage of life where one always looks for existential answers, such as who we are, where do we come from, and where we're going. And it turns out that there's a story in the most serious and conservative newspaper in Lima, the daily El Comercio, which said that it had been discovered that the space was not a deathly silence as believed, but that it was a lot of noise. Those noises could be messages from other planets, from advanced civilizations that could be trying to communicate with their peers in the universe. So my father organized a conference to comment on this news. It was given by a doctor from the Hospital of Lima, a member of the Theosophical Society, a high degree of Freemasonry, Dr. Victor Yañez Aguirre. And he argued that if there are aliens whose only merit is to have started before us and who had the technology to be reaching Earth, they could be reaching Earth not only with their spaceships, but mentally, telepathically, or astrally, even in dreams. They could be trying to contact humanity. I was fascinated because at that age, I was then back home. I told my mother and my sister what it had been about, and we tried as a game to put into practice what we learned in yoga as channeling a telepathic mental message.
Communicate with them?
That's right, but it was like a game. I mean, we never thought we would have a result. And on that night of January 22nd of 74, I received the first psychography, the compulsive need to put in writing what I was capturing in my mind. Supposedly, a being named Oxalc, who said to come from Ganymede, one of Jupiter's moons, said to want to communicate with us. I wrote that. So when I read it to my mother and sister, I laughed. But my mother and sister did not say that they had felt the same, but they also had felt it, the same message, only that they did not write it. I forgot about it, But my sister called the friends saying, "Hey, Sixto has communicated with an alien." So the next day, we had 20 people to see what was behind all this. Then they almost pressured me to repeat the experiment. I did not want to deceive myself or deceive anyone, but simply to show that it was not true. So I went ahead and repeated the experiment again, and then I received a message. So we approached to repeat the test, and we were told to go to the Chilca Desert south of Lima because on February 7th of the year 74, at 9 o'clock at night, we would see the ship appear, and that it was the confirmation that the contact was real. We went a day before so as not to be confused with an air phenomena. The day of the appointment arrived, and the time indicated, and what no one would have imagined happened. That is, behind the hills, the night lit up as if it were daytime, and a light came out behind the hills, began to fall before us. We were 20 people, 20 boys and girls between 16 and 18 years old. One or two of 20 years old. When it came to be placed on top of us, at a height of about 80 meters, it was a disc-shaped object with white lights on its belly, and it moved on itself and projected a light like noon. We felt panic, terror, a tremendous fear.
But they didn't leave there.
No, it's that no one even dared to take a step. So all of us, not just me, we caught in our minds that they told us that they were not coming down because we were not prepared, that there would be a preparation, a time and a place. Months later, the ship landed. We saw the crew coming down.
What were they like?
Before we get to that, when we returned home, we told our dad about it, and he obviously didn't believe us. He said, "Gee, I've been investigating the UFO issue for so many years. How are you going to have a contact, let alone?"
Without any experience, it appeared from one moment to another.
So, in those days, we tried to receive communication again and asked these beings for proof so that my father was a witness. Reluctantly, my father accompanied us with people from the Air Force and saw a cylinder shaped device appear that was calculated to be about 150 meters long. My father was strongly shocked because he said, "How unfair! How unfair! If he was the one investigating the UFO issue, it was him." Well, the point is that a few months later, the ship lands, and the being that came down was a giant. That came down from the interior of the ship. Was 2.5 meters tall. That is a giant. Now, the appearance was like Nordic, like in Scandinavian, but thin. He looked strong but thin, with a head, trunk, limbs, short hair, a silver gray. He looked like a Nordic, but very large, and had a silver suit with a kind of black breastplate on his chest, making gestures with the hands. And this being that it was what we captured, because on that occasion we were 25 people and only 4 dared to approach the being. What we caught in our minds that he was telling us is that he was coming from a planet called Apu, from the star Alpha Centaurus, at 4.1 light years away from our solar system, a binary system of 2 suns. To say that 45 years ago that we had contact with an extraterrestrial being from the star Alpha Centaurus from 4.2 light years away was ridiculous.
They called them crazy.
Sure. However, in 2012, NASA and 3 North American universities discovered the exoplanet, a planet that orbits another star outside our solar system, closest to us at only 4.2 light years away, and revolves around the Alpha star of Centaur, a binary system of 2 suns. And it is a planet that has a magnetic field, it has oceans like Earth, rocky mountains, atmosphere, and everything. For this reason, NASA already had a project of a ship that works with plasma engines that one day could actually reach that place. So they told us in the year 74. Today, science confirmed it from 2012 onwards. And on that night of January 22nd of 74, I received the first psychographic message, the compulsive need to put in writing what I was capturing in my mind, supposedly a being named Oxalc who said to come from Ganymede, one of Jupiter's moons, said to want to communicate with us. I wrote it. I wrote that.
You said that when you were initially contacted, they were told that we are not going to introduce ourselves because you are not prepared. And what is it like to be prepared? Why are contacts made with some people and not with others? Why doesn't anyone contact me? For example, Sixto?
Well, really, the preparation consisted of facing our fears. So, in the following outings that we began to make to the desert, we were invited to move away from the camp a kilometer alone and stay facing your fears because the biggest problem is that in front of them, that is, in the face of the unknown, our fears are the ones that betray us. So we were preparing ourselves against those tests of self control that were called, and of course, we generalized among all the people in the group practice meditation, that is, breathing, to charge you with the energy to relax, to eliminate the tension and direct it from the body to the mind. Concentrate to bring order to mental chaos. Discipline your mind. Learn to recognize when the ideas you have are yours and when they are not. And finally, reach the fourth step, which is meditation. Meditate and be in silence with oneself. I mean, I want to receive messages from the aliens. I want to be in contact with the universe, which is what I have to do. Stay at alone and in silence with myself. I want to be in contact with the universe, which is what I have to do. Stay alone and in silence with myself. Then those practices together with the test of self control, facing your fears, were the preparation. Now, anyone can have contact experience. What anyone cannot do is to maintain the contact experience. Having it depends more on them than on us. Then, select the people they want to contact. They select the people who they want to contact. But not because such a person is better than the rest, but because they know that through certain people they can reach a much wider group. What use would it be if to them to have an experience of contact with someone who lives the experience and for fear of the ridicule or discredit is not going to say anything? Or people who suddenly live the experience and as the human mind has blocking mechanisms that make one forget traumatic experiences. There are people who had the experience and do not remember anything. They only have hours of wasted time in which they do not know what it was, what really happened.
Sixto, what is the difference between contact with these beings and also with what has been said? I don't know if it's true. Abductions, because one thing is to contact them and receive messages and have encounters.
The relationship of peaceful, positive, and the other,
If the negative experiences, that is that they take and do experiments in their ships and they even do inseminations and crosses between races. Is this real what I'm telling you about abductions? Or only the contacts appear?
if they are real.
They are real?
Yes, why? Because there are about 60 races that are coming to Earth with the most varied intentions. Not all of them come with good intentions. There's everything in the universe as there's everything on Earth. What happens is that it is not so easy that those who do not come with good intentions can act freely in our world. That ship that crashed in Roswell, which is one of the cases where the modern era of the UFOs begins 70 years ago, that ship was shot down, but not by terrestrial technology, but by other ships that are taking care of the land, taking care of Earth. Those who do not come or those who do not come with good intentions. Here, for example, in Colombia, in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, a UFO also crashed. In Paiwano, Chile, in Varginha, Brazil, in South Africa, and Russia, there have been at least 38 ships that have crashed in other parts of the world, shut down by others that protect us. There's a video that is on YouTube of the 1991 shuttle Discovery, where you can see the curvature of the Earth and a luminous object at an angle of entry to the planet. Immediately, 7 objects appear which block the way. They launch a kind of missile or beam of light which forces that object to make an incredible angle of departure and to leave at high speed where it came from. Then, if there are frictions, if there are tensions, if there are struggles between them, moreover, there is a medieval engraving of April 14th of 1561. You can find it on the internet in the same place where centuries later the great concentrations of Hitler's National Socialist Party would take place. Well, there in Nuremberg, April 14th of 1561, people in broad daylight saw a number of objects appear in the sky in the form of discs, half moons, crosses, cylinders. From the cylinders, more discs came out, and as if they were fighting in the air, some exploded in the sky and others smashed against the earth. People believed they saw in that the end signs. They saw the signs of the end of the world. Obviously, a star war, having our planet as a neutral scene of its battles. After an hour, a large object in the shape of a spearhead appeared, about 4 kilometers long. It gives the impression as if it were one of the ships of the Empire of Star Wars. He made the objects group together and go in different directions, ending this cosmic battle. 6 years later, the same phenomenon was reproduced in Basel, Switzerland. In other words, there are well-mentioned and bad-intentioned aliens. Those encounters of the first type are when you see something unusual, strange, that you don't know what it is, something that defies the law of physics known to us. Of the second type is when you are in your home alone, in your room, and you feel the compelling, compulsive need to approach the window, to look out, open the door, go up to the roof and look in this or that direction, and you see an object that interacts with the witnesses. It moves to the right, left, up, down. It gives you the impression that it knows that you are seeing it and it wants you to see it. That is, those encounters of the second type. Now, the third type, you are at home in your room, and at the foot of your bed, a luminous being materializes, or you are in your living room, and you see a luminous sphere, which, what is called a canepla or a Foo Fighter, like a kind of an electronic eye, which is like a remote control television camera, an alien drone, and it passes in front of you. Or are you going down the road and the car stops working, and once the UFO lands and these beings come down, you are on the field and these spheres approach you. Close encounters of the third type. The fourth type is when they invite you to go inside the ship. What happens is that many times they invite you, and the human mind has blocking mechanisms, and you do not consciously remember that they invited you.
So maybe many people who have had that experience and don't remember it.
You don't remember it or just forget it as a defense mechanism. Now, it's not that they took her by force and manipulated them and everything, simply because you're not in a position to be able to remember the experience you had. Now, if they take you by force, that is an abduction, a kidnapping. And close encounters of the fifth kind is when they take you for a walk out there off the ground.
The case that you told us the other time and that you have told in all the interviews about your trip to Ganymede.
That's right, yes.
Let's talk now about aliens among us. Which is that one thing is that they appear to you in a ship or have contact like what you have had. And another thing is that you find people living with us with the appearance of human beings, but they are not human. Is this also real?
It is also true here in Colombia the experience of a Costa Rican contactee named Enrique Castillo Rincon was very widespread. In 72, he had a commercial partner of appearance of a European origin, Cities Vice, in Venezuela. So he also came for business here in Colombia, in Bogota, and suddenly, after they finish doing all their business with the other businessmen, they say, "Hey Enrique, why don't you stay? We're going to have a meeting with Karenka. She's a Mexican contactee." With whom?
Contacted with whom?
Contacted with the aliens. No, please, they are not going to tell me that they're believing in those things. What nonsense. We're engineers, man. No, seriously. She's a contactee, a part. She is very pretty and everything. Total that they stayed out of curiosity and really a very beautiful woman, very intelligent, very psychic, Karenka, a Mexican contactee. So in 1972, she met with Enrique Castillo del Rincon and with his group of businessmen and told them that he had received that there was going to be an experience in La Calera, behind the Montserrat, that is behind Bogota, an area of fields where there are farms and everything. Enrique stayed. Let's go and everything. No, man, what nonsense. Look, that girl is pretty. Well, then let's go. For her more than anything else. Total, they went to the other side, and there was a tremendous cold because one who came from Costa Rica, he was dying of cold. He was hating the fact of having come to the meeting then when he was already thinking of leaving. He saw that the object lands. He approaches by his same scientific curiosity as an engineer and then sees two beings who come down and suddenly seems to recognize one of them as his commercial partner in Venezuela, Cyril Weiss. Then he says, "Cyril, is it you? Look, my name really is Krishnamurk, and my partner here, Kormakan. We are Pleiadians and we are infiltrated in your society."
Pleiadians?
Pleiadians, yes, from the constellation of Taurus.
I just had a question about the Pleiadians and contact with women, because there are also people who make contact with them.
In 1975, Edward Billy Mayer, a Swiss farmer, claimed to have had direct contact with these beings from Pleiades, and who commanded the ships.
Okay.
Was a Pleiadian, was a woman, a lady named Semyase.
So women are basically the ones who have more contact.
In the cosmos, there are no such problems of uh, machismo, from like being a macho man, or feminism. In other words, both men and women are those who can contact us. We have had contact many times, and many of those contacts have also been with women, females. Well, first of all, for them, we are a sociological, anthropological, metaphysical event. It is like you go to a lost tribe of the Amazon and you find a human group that is living like 50,000 years ago.
We are an object of study?
Naturally, I mean, people like that from the Amazon that suddenly with an uncontacted group, this group does not suffer from cancer, does not suffer from diabetes, does not have depression problems, does not have bipolar problems, does not murder their partner, does not abandon their children. So there is no one who, however wise they are, does not have something to learn, and not one who, however humble he is, does not have something to teach. So when we can all learn from each other, but what is the fundamental reason why the aliens are coming? Firstly, because according to them, we are the result of an extraterrestrial genetic experiment. We're not like laboratory rats, but something like test tube babies. And our world is not a farm, but a kind of nursery, a kindergarten, where they would be trying to innovate a different form of education that allows them over time to learn or remember things that they have forgotten or neglected. According to them, throughout our history, there has been hybridization and interbreeding between extraterrestrial and human beings from Earth. They say that even the sacred scriptures in chapter 6 of the daughters and seeing the sons of God, the angels of heaven, that they took chapter 6 of the biblical Genesis says, when man began to populate the earth, they begot daughters, and seeing the sons of God, the angels of heaven, that the daughters of men were beautiful in their eyes, they took from them as many as they wanted to, and they procreated from them the ancient heroes of yesteryear. If anyone had forgotten, if anyone had gotten the idea that all angels were immaterial beings with a girl's face and wings on their backs, they're totally wrong. Because the same Bible tells us that some of them behave like a sailor in a distant port and leave the family spread.
In each port of love.
That's right.
I have another concern. We were talking about their presence here, and that they come from distant galaxies and have a technology.
They mostly come from our own galaxy, that is. Our galaxy is 100,000 light years in diameter. There are at least 400 billion stars in this galaxy. 100 billion solar systems in the galaxy alone. 100 billion solar systems in this galaxy alone, and the closest galaxy to us is Andromeda, which is 2 million light years away. Although we travel at the speed of light, almost 300,000 kilometers per second, it would take us 2 million years to go to the nearest galaxy. So there are many possibilities here in our galaxy. A scientist from the SETI Institute, led by Frank Drake, has just been in Peru. Frank Drake made an equation. It is the one that calculates the possibilities of the existence of highly developed civilizations in our galaxy. The one that calculates the possibilities of the existence of highly developed civilizations in our galaxy. According to all the latest findings of exoplanets with oceans, with atmospheres and all, the equation today is, at the scientific level, that in our galaxy, in the Milky Way, there will be at least 3 million highly developed civilizations.
Many. The question I was going to ask you is a theory that also exists about the possibility of all theories are relatively valid. That these beings that make contact with us here on Earth are ourselves from the future of advanced technologies and that we are coming here. Let's say to prevent tragedies from happening. And all these things, how successful can it be?
Well, it's totally out of the question. Why? Because if we were ourselves from the future, or our descendants who come to correct their past, they would be creating a space time paradox, a vicious cycle from which we could not get out. Because if they alter any situation of the past, they put their own existence in the future. This is how this films like Going Back to the Future that started one, two, three films, and then the script writer went crazy because he did not know how to continue with the script because it didn't make any sense. So there are things that are not. We are experiencing extraordinary moments in human history. 45 years ago, when we began the experience of contact, what scientists said that space was empty. There was nothing between planets and stars, that the only solar system verified with planets was ours. We were probably the only solar system with planets in the entire universe. So the stars were there for decoration. That the only place that had been detected water and therefore life was the Earth. We were probably a unique case in the entire universe. When we started the contact 45 years ago, what we received as messages, that space is full of organic molecules. that the raw material for life is plaguing the universe, that solar systems abound in the universe, that planets like Earth are plenty in the whole universe. And what we were told was that we were delusional, ignorant. We had to wait until 2006 when NASA sent the Cassini probe, which reached Saturn. Saturn has 60 moons. We have one. Saturn 60, and found a tiny 500-kilometer in diameter that has geysers that launch vaporized water at an altitude of 40 kilometers. It freezes in space, and Saturn takes that frozen water and thus forms the E ring, which is the characteristic ring of the shape that Saturn has. I mean, they found not a planet but a moon that has so much water and so much geothermal and volcanic activity that it can even have life. A moon. That in 2006. In 2009, it was discovered that our moon has as much water as the Earth, only that in the subsoil of the moon. And in the surface craters, there is frozen water, sometimes up to 300 meters in diameter. These large concentrations of frozen water. In 2015, it was discovered that Ganymede, the largest of Jupiter's moons, has oceans as large as those of Earth. In 2012, the closest exoplanet that was discovered that revolves around the Alpha star of Centaur, and also in 2011, the Helcher Space Telescope of the European Union captured a protostar, a star in the process of formation that is only 750 light years away from our solar system, inside the galaxy, and that in its process of formation launches water springs into space, but not jets of radiation or fire, but the equivalent of 100 million times the flow of the Amazon River per second of water. A star that is forming, and what it launches into space is jets of water. Thanks to this, it was learned that all the stars are formed always appear with a cloud of water vapor that guarantees that all the planets that are going to emerge from the star already come with water incorporated.
You follow me to ask a question now. That we are talking about how these moons and planets are formed. Do you believe in evolution or creation?
Both. The two things work in parallel. First, in 2010, at NASA's Goddard Institute, after having analyzed 10 meteorites, some rescued in Siberia and others in Antarctica, discovered in meteorites the basic amino acids of our life. Nitrogenous bases, the building blocks of life. That is, the DNA was in the meteorites that came from outer space. And thanks to that, scientists have discovered that space is not empty. That space is full of organic molecules and dark matter, of cosmic dust, that is. Life is plaguing the universe. To confirm this, in 2014, scientists sent the Rosetta mission, a Philae probe that landed on the nucleus of comet 67P and discovered that the entire nucleus of the comet was a mass of organic molecules, for which today scientists recognize that meteorites and comets act as if they were cosmic sperm, fertilizing the eggs that are the planets.
Well, let's talk now about the present because here I have a number of documents from the National Geographic of large mass media,
From the Washington Post, from the New York Times,
and from the United States government itself. Until a while ago, the UFO issue was vetoed and denied. The government denies having knowledge like the famous movie that of the X-Files, but now it seems that they are not denying it so much.
For years, the U.S. government denied the existence of Area 51. That area does not exist. However, in 2013, the CIA declared that Area 51 always existed. What happens is that the project for the Ghost North American stealth aircraft that were used in the Balkan War was developed there. They developed in the 50s the U-2 aircraft by the CIA for espionage at high altitude, but they always denied it. And now it turns out that it always existed. Well, then the US government has just confirmed this year that secret documents, the UFO footage captured by the Navy, by Air Force, between 2015 and 2016. Spectacular. They were handed over to the U.S. Senate at the request of senators like Senator and Congressman Harry Reid, a Democrat. And after having analyzed them, they decided to deliver it to the press, and the New York Times published it. I mean, the U.S. Senate recognizes that UFOs exist, that they are real. The Washington Post published UFOs exist, and they are a phenomenon that can no longer be denied. President Trump himself said, "They also sent me these documents, and I do not care about the UFOs issue as well as the climate change issue. All issues have him without care." So, that this came out and that the National Geographic itself publishes "We Are Not Alone" on its front page cover. So, we're not alone, but not like this question, will we be alone? No, we are not alone. Why? Because every day exoplanets are being discovered. That is, planets that are 100% water, planets that have oceans, that have rocky continents, that have a magnetic field, that have an atmosphere. Every day they are discovering. Before, there was no technology for this.
It wasn't because it didn't exist, but because we didn't know it existed.
We had no way of knowing. Now, we did not know, and then how curious were those scientists who 45 years ago said, "No, there is nothing." Today they say, "We always knew there could be."
He who does not win, just as we say here.
It is the same thing that happened when Christopher Columbus met with the wise men in Salamanca, who were the scholars of that time. Tried to talk them so that the Queen could finance the expedition. Look, my theory is that the Earth is round, and if one goes west, one can return to the east, and we could even reach China and India through the other side. Don Cristo, the Earth is flat, and if you go beyond the map, you fall. So happily the Queen bet for him, and when he returned, the wise men of Salamanca told him, "Don Cristobal, do you remember that we always supported you? We always agree with you."
When will we have in the future? I don't know if near or far. These beings are already openly visible to everyone. When all these documents, some are declassified, begin to show the obvious or what seems obvious, will we have these people already revealed in front of humanity?
Yes, because there are already many reports about the information that is coming in, that every time we send a rover, a small tank, to Mars, these UFOs approach. That every time astronauts go into space, the ships get closer. The astronauts are already acting as diplomatic agents of the great nations, receiving the extraterrestrial message, and what some ex astronauts are doing is preparing humanity for the imminent contact. That is why we have a conference here in Medellin tomorrow. This is in fine arts. The conference is going to be the end of the conspiracy of silence. Everything that the governments have been hiding, and that is now time for it to be made known to the public light. And we will also talk about the extraterrestrial races. Whose are those who are visiting us, and what are the intentions of each one of them? And how important are we to them?
Is it true that there has been contact with world leaders on the issue of technology, transfer for weapons, and all these things?
No. If with how much we know we have put the world on the brink of total destruction, what if we knew a little more? The current problem is not one of technology, the problem is one of morals and ethics. Now, why have governments been systematically hiding the reality of the UFO phenomena? Because for the military, it does not matter whether they are aliens or foreigners, since an identified flying object invades your airspace without you being able to avoid it is a national security problem. In the face of the taxpayers, you are making a fool of yourself because you can't help it. So that there are so why are there military? So why there are borders if they are a drain? They can come whenever they want to. On the other hand, the most prosperous business today in the world, which only competes in profitability in international traffic is the sale of weapons. Then the crisis at a social, economical, and religious level that could occur only that this definitive contact takes place. Humanity would have to unite as a single great nation in front of the visitors. However, religions are already taking giant steps. It is like that of Neil Armstrong on the moon. One small step for man, one big step for humanity. In 1999, Monsignor Corrado Balducci, Vatican theologian of the Catholic Church, on the UFO issue is accept the possibility that in such a great universe we're not alone, and that the angels of the past could be the aliens of today. And on May 13th of 2008, Jose Gabriel Funes, the highest astronomical authority of the Vatican, a Jesuit of Argentinian origin, now it's fashionable to be Jesuit in Argentina, well, the Pope's astronomer in charge of the Castel Gandolfo Observatory in Rome declared to the Roman Observatory, the official Vatican media, that the Vatican accepts extraterrestrial life and that it is as lawful for a Catholic to believe in God as it is to believe in aliens. How times have changed.
Sixto, I think we can conclude with this phrase from a National Geographic. We are not alone, definitely.
That's right. And we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. And one of those possibilities really is that it is not so much that we begin to believe that there is extraterrestrial life, but that we have to convince ourselves that just as there is life on this planet, we have to make that life goes on. And that is our responsibility.
We have to protect ourselves. Thank you very much, Sixto, for joining us, and as always, welcome to Medellin.